Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Soul Goals. I'm Dawn, and this is.
Hello, Dixie. Woohoo.
Hey, let's go. What are we
What's
on now?
up?
Gosh, are we on episode 4, 5,
Is it
6,
five? It's five, maybe?
5? Gosh, I don't know. It's like what happens when you're having fun. I just lose track of all of
I
it.
know, right? Time flies.
Yeah, I've so been enjoying this. And this is a week where Dixie and I have taken on yet another challenge for you to kind of take part in if you want to join us along this path. Because I think as I'm thinking about it and as we're airing these, I'm like, there's a lot of possibility for you to just step into this role with us and to follow up with us and then give us some feedback about what worked for you as an audience and as a listener when you may take on this task and it's something that you go, I really need X, Y, or Z in my life. That really hit me. That was something that I need to do as a challenge. That was something that I need more of in my life, that I need to be clear about, that will probably help me. Like you said in the first episode, that will stretch me
There
maybe
you
a little
go.
bit.
That's right.
Yeah. So this week's challenge was super challenging for me. We're calling this one Disconnect to Reconnect. And the basis of this one is unplugging from social media for one full day, 24 hours. Let's just talk,
Yee. Dum, dum, dum.
right? Dun
Right.
dun dun is right. Tell me a little bit about how that worked for you because I'm going to just jump in and tell you my honest truth here in a little bit.
Okay, perfect. For me, it was really funny choosing the day that I
Okay.
was gonna do it because I was like, okay, on this day I'm doing this, so that's gonna be really hard. It was like I was negotiating in my what day. Well, I
That's how we
chose
do.
to. I know. So we went to Mississippi for our nephew's wedding, and I thought I'm just gonna make it, I guess, hard on myself. I typically on road trips, I'm just glued to my phone,
Yeah.
scrolling. It's kind of how I, pass the time. It's a 6 hour drive.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, while I'm in Mississippi, I will not be on social media for that
Okay.
24 hours. So I started at about 1 o'clock in the 1 or 2 in the afternoon and thought, okay, so by the time we go to the wedding, my 24 hours will be passed, and then I can take pictures and post on Instagram, all the things.
Right.
Well, interestingly enough, my 24 hours turned into like almost 3 days,
Dixie, I love
right?
it.
I was totally surprised. It was very hard for me to get back in the swing. I it was hard for me to get back in that like recording all these things because I'm documenting my journey into the
Right.
spring of 2025. So to get back in that habit was hard for me,
Yeah.
but also I found myself I pick up my phone a lot
Yes.
and I would just pick it up and go, "Oh, do I really? No, I'll just put it right down. I'm going to be present right here." So I kind of gradually got back in and was
Okay.
posting inspirational quotes. And then I got a bout of bronchitis, which kept me like, recovering what wasn't on my phone. So
Yeah.
it was just today that I have, done like I edited something and posted
Yeah.
it or whatever. But I discovered, my coach says she heard, I think it was her pastor when she was at church,
Mhm.
said he was doing a series on, how we get distracted. And he said,
Mhm.
do you own a phone or does your phone own a human?
Oh my gosh.
And
That's so brilliant.
but what I did discover is my phone totally owns a human.
Yes. Oh, same. Same here.
Right.
Absolutely
So
same.
yes, but I enjoyed so much. Like I took pictures, like I went on a walk in Mississippi and I took pictures.
Yeah.
And typically my first thought is, oh, let me post this. Let me do this. Let me do this. And for the I was really present at the wedding. I was
Love it.
present with my family.
Yeah.
And it was so nice. And I'm glad I picked that time because typically I would just be, on my phone, even if we're
Mm.
all in a family room, there's a
Mhm.
football game going, I might choose to just scroll Instagram or be on Facebook and
Yeah.
chose to be with my fam. And That was exciting. I enjoyed being present. It was a lovely visit. So,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
so proud of you. I hope that doesn't sound, like, condescending or weird or
Not at
anything.
all. Not at all.
I
I love
mean,
it when people say, "I'm so proud of you."
so proud of you. Oh, I'm proud of you for multiple reasons, but, like, that's that's a really big thing. I think if we look back at what it is that social media affects in us, as I was researching what I was gonna talk about today in that context, in the scientific data that comes up with what social media does to change us as humans and
Mhm.
how it affects us as humans, the brain development in adolescence was a big thing for me.
Mhm.
And I know when my kids were little, we didn't have the iPad stuff. They
Right.
had we had, like, portable televisions that we, like, put on the back of
Of
the
our car
Yes.
seats.
Yeah, the back of the
Yes.
car seats where you actually had to strap them in, and I can't like, we had a couple of them that we had to just completely rig up in some crazy way for it to stay when we'd be on a long car trip,
Mhm.
or, like, if we'd go out someplace, I'm like, "Oh, well, let's just bring the portable little TV, and they can watch a DVD." Oh my god, I'm taking it to the way back. The
No, right?
DVDs.
And you would keep so many DVDs in the car
Yes.
on the
Yeah.
trip, and yeah, what movies do we wanna watch on our trip, guys?
Yes, yes. So I think about the accessibility now versus even I think it was even 10 to 15 years ago. It's a big difference now than it even was then when
Right.
they were tiny little tots. But it's another thing that really got me was this attention span and making it hard for people to focus. Like the more that we
Mhm.
are engaged in that, the more it takes away from that element in our brain that is able to actually tune in and hone in on what it is that we're trying to accomplish as a task in general.
Right.
Um, and this was a big one that I mean, I was aware of, but I was kind of unaware of. And they call it, I'm going to read it here, confirmation bias. It's where algorithms are learning like our preferences, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And then they send you information that supports your preferences and does not give you information about things that are different from the way you might look at life. So
Right.
yeah, then it takes away our ability to see multiple different perspectives to potentially be able to see another side of the story.
Yeah,
You
to
see what I'm
think
saying?
critically, to
Yeah.
think critically. You're but it's
Mhm.
I think it was I can't remember how long it was ago that I saw an article on this where and it may have been as far back as 2020 is when I first realized that depending on the things you search, the articles that you read, the area of the country that you live in, you're only being fed from your socials the things that, like you said, confirm your bias already.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
to me, that's really scary because I was talking with
yes.
someone yesterday, I was a guest on a podcast yesterday, and we were talking about that division of people versus connection of people, and when I read about the confirmation bias last night as I was writing out, a little bit more about us talking today, I was like, "Wow." Like, that's a big element of division for people because if we can't, like you said, think critically and be in a place where we see other perspectives outside of just where we are in our bubble, it doesn't really grow us and it doesn't challenge us or change us. And I'm not saying that, it's imperative that you look at everybody else's reality, but I think it's imperative that we have a glimpse into other options and other ways of people's existence so that we can maybe create more compassion, create more understanding, create more grace, and then we learn about ourselves more too because what if we're missing something that that really is us,
Mhm.
you know? And
Right.
that was just like a woof, okay.
Well,
And then
if we believe that changing, like we evolve over time and we change and we grow, I feel like it might be taking that element away in some
yeah,
way. So
yeah,
we're stagnant. And that's
yeah,
so dangerous. My personal opinion is
yeah.
that's so dangerous to say. I mean, we all know what stagnant water does. It grows
Oh, right.
disease, it grows bacteria, it does all. So I feel like, in our the same could be true if we're not constantly challenging ourselves. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with everybody, but
Yep,
to allow your
exactly.
brain to critically think and form an opinion and like read facts and not just something that's orchestrated for me to see just because I searched something that's
Yeah.
frightening to me. Yeah.
Me too. Frightening is the biggest thing I think that kind of took me it kind of took me aback when I read that. I was like, "Whoa." Like it's something I think that I probably knew because like if we've always joked about it with my kids and stuff. We're talking I don't know, we were talking about our dog food of all things. We had our
Mhm.
phones sitting on the kitchen table and in the kitchen because we were either making dinner or doing something. And I was like, hey, feed the dogs. It's dinner time. And I was saying something to my husband about, oh, we need to, I'm getting ready to change the dog's food. I have to go to PetSmart and grab something different. And we were just talking about different dog food options. Literally 30 minutes later, I pick up my phone and I'm just looking at an alert that I had gotten on Instagram. And look, what's popping up is a commercial for dog food, an
Uh-huh.
advertisement for dog food. And I'm like, hmm,
Right.
I, I don't, that's startling to me. So I knew that algorithm situation was there, but I think reading about what that really means was
Mhm.
pretty impactful for me in
Mhm.
seeing what that can create in terms of division versus connection. And I think that's really what this platform is all about is leaning into connection and relatability
Mhm.
and being real for one another, which
Right.
is really important, in my opinion, really
No,
important.
for sure. And there's
Yeah.
another, I read some study that same week, the this week that we did this, about dopamine hits, and
Yes.
that being on, like, scrolling your phone and getting likes and getting comments and messages is the same as that dopamine hit, like when people crave sugar or
Yeah.
alcohol or drugs. Or I was like, whoa, like, where
Yeah.
it's that same addiction, if you will, to, for lack of a better term. I don't want to make light of that term, but
Mhm.
that dopamine hit,
Yeah,
we
it's real.
then we start needing it even more.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like,
it's
"Ooh, I just
it's
posted this. How many likes do I have to get?"
mm,
Why only 4 people saw my story? I mean,
yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. And then you think about that and how that's affecting the adolescent brain and the teenage and young adult brain, because that's a big deal that drives that anxiety that a
Mhm,
lot of that age grouping is having.
mhm.
So, and I don't want to like totally dog social media on all the bad things because like here we are on social media, you
Right,
know what I mean?
right. No, for
So
sure.
I think the positives that it began as was this connection to people and family members in situations that are not in our backyard, and how do we connect to people that we can't see on a regular basis and
Mhm.
see their lives and share pieces of our joy and pieces of our life with other people. But I think it, like anything, it just it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it grows into some kind of mushroom cloud where it just reconfigures as we go along.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. It's a great tool. It's a terrible master, so.
Ah,
Mhm.
Dixie dropping the truth bombs already.
So
Well,
early.
speaking of truth, I'm going to be super truthful and super honest that I failed this task this week. I failed it
Mm.
on 3 separate occasions. And the scary thing for me that made me stop on the 3rd time and go, "Whoa," was that it was literally habitual. Like, I started out my day going, "Again, I have to post on social media for the podcast and for different elements of my business." But I think the thing for me that stopped me was that I was doing great. And then I picked up my phone to just check an email, and I was waiting for my email to populate. And I was like, oh, the first thing I need to do is go to this. I'm like, oh God, I just did it.
Right.
I just went on Instagram. And just mindlessly, there was nothing specific, but it was just like an automatic.
Mhm.
And for me, that's a scary factor
Mhm.
because I think a lot of us end up doing that. So I miserably failed this week. Miserably.
No, you didn't
Mhm.
fail. You learned.
There we go. There we go. There's the positive in it. I think too, like we have to find what's the light about this. And I think if I'm looking at that, I'm understanding that this is a limiting factor for me that I really need to probably address in a different manner. And I would wager to bet, I mean, there's a lot of folks out there that could say the same things. I don't feel like I'm alone in it, but I also just want to be really honest and really truthful that
Right.
it's hard. It was extreme. That was extremely hard. Like as one of the weeks prior, the Let's Get Physical and the workout stuff, I'm like, yeah, all day, let's go.
Right.
But man,
Let's go.
this one was a doozy, and I feel like we're gonna get down the line when we go back and to repeat some of these things, and one of the goals later in the year is going to be repeating something through the year that you had a hard time with. It's probably gonna be
Right.
this one.
Right.
Oh,
I think
gosh.
too, though, I mean, I identify with you so much just because I was able to go the 24 hours or whatever.
Mhm.
I was also super distracted and was in a new environment. I don't know. Maybe I should try it in regular life when I'm not traveling and stuff because I realized since we did this that when I wake up in the morning, my first like instinct is to pick up my phone
Yeah. Yeah.
and I already have notifications like all up the front,
Yep.
and I'm like,
Yep.
oh my gosh, and so it's the last thing I look at. It's the first thing I grab, and I
Yeah.
think most of us relate to that.
Yeah.
It's just a
Oh,
habit that
amen.
we just pick it
Mhm.
up, and
Mhm.
or if we've forgotten how to. I think for me personally, I'm not speaking for all of humankind, but I feel like we've forgotten how to just be still and
Yes.
without having to be occupied with something, just to be still and just kind of sit in silence, or like if it's like a meditation space, or if it's just being at rest. I think we've just forgotten how to do that. I have.
Right. I know exactly what you're talking about. I had a client at one point, and we were doing some meditation practices, and she had a really hard time with it. She's like, "Dawn, like, don't take this the wrong way, but, like, my job is so high, go, 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 go. I need to be able to access that point and just go, go, go. And what you're asking me to do is sit, 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 and
Hmm.
just be." And I'm like, "For 5 minutes. Let's do it for 5
Right.
minutes." Right? And her point was that I don't need to slow down. I need to learn how to be more efficient and speed up so that I can be better. So I don't understand how slowing down is going to help me. And the best thing that I could say to her was that when you create that space for breath, and literally, I mean, I'm gonna sound like a kind of crazy person here, but when we really dive into that breath and slow things down by focusing on the very simplistic thing that keeps us alive
Hmm.
and that we do on a regular basis unconsciously, that our body just naturally does for us, is that breathing. We go back to square one and we really focus on the inhale, the hold, the exhale, the hold. Like, I like to do square breathing. That's one of my
Hmm.
favorite things ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we do that, it creates space where our brains can then articulate when we are in a place of have to take care of things quickly, have to address things in a really efficient manner. It just makes the brain almost go, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. It's
Hmm.
like you're resting the brain to be able to grow the brain and the
Hmm.
activity that you are then called to do. And I lost track of that client. That's been so many years ago. I hope that she found something of that, but I will also say that it's easier said than done. It's
For sure.
so easier said than done.
For sure. And I think that people are uncomfortable with the stillness and the resting and the breath work, so to speak,
Mhm.
because it rests the brain, but it also brings up things that you didn't see coming.
Yeah.
And you have to, anybody knows you can't go 1,000 miles an hour and never take a break,
Yeah.
because then you're really not doing well. Then you burn out, you do all, you
Yeah.
can't function in this high functioning job or life that you have without rest. You know,
Exactly.
a great,
Exactly.
so it's, I just think we're in a society where the grind is so celebrated
Oh, wow, yes. It
that
is.
the rest, it's like, what do you mean? I think
Yeah.
we're getting to a point now where people are seeing the value and starting to speak out, and more
Mhm.
so than ever,
Mhm.
like it's okay to slow down. It's actually required for you to be high functioning. But
Yeah.
the grind culture has really, I think, hurt us in a lot of ways.
I couldn't agree more. I think that that slowing down is looked at as a deficit to your day and almost like a laziness thing. And I
Hmm.
mean, I think we can kind of you have to be really, really careful about what that means for you. If you are doing it out of a behavior to avoid something,
Sure.
that's one thing. Kind of like we go back to the whole disconnecting to reconnect. Like, if we're doing the social media as a way of avoiding connecting in relationships, connecting in our job, it's like one thing that my older daughter, when she was in high school, she had a project to do, and I remember back, and it was in a psychology class, and they were talking about monitoring every time you are in your homework, like doing work outside of school, how many times do you reach for your phone and go on social media while you are do whether it's TikTok, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook,
Mhm.
Twitter, all the things, and just make a hash mark on on a paper. How many times during, say, an hour course of study you actually pick your phone up and do that?
Wow.
Because what happens is when your brain gets stopped and slow, you become uncomfortable, and it's like, "What do I do now?" And the first thing that they would do is like, "Okay, I need to do this."
Mhm.
Like, wow.
I
Like,
mean, I
wow.
identify with that completely. In the morning time, like my morning routine, like when I sit and take the time to sit and read or journal, if I stop or take a minute,
Mhm.
yeah, I find myself grabbing my phone and I'm like, "Wait,
Yeah.
I'm not done yet."
Yeah,
You
and I
know.
don't really know what that is other than, like, I think you said, that's, the well, instant gratification and that
Mhm.
dopamine that we're looking for. Like, if we get into a place of stress, we're looking for something to make us feel better, and that
Mhm.
dopamine fix that you talked about earlier is a big part of that.
Yeah, because I don't remember feeling that growing up. Like when I was a teenager, young
Yeah,
adult, if something I mean, we just have everything at our fingertips. So if something
yeah.
happens on the news, we know immediately. Like we don't have to wait till the next morning when the paper gets delivered to the house, and I'm aging myself, I know, but when the
I know what you're talking
when
about.
you go to the end of the driveway and pick up the paper, that's when you found out when things happened.
Yeah,
That's when you found out, what was going on. If you needed something from the store, you actually had to go. You don't Nobody could bring it to your door.
right.
All the things, there were things that just took time,
Yeah.
and we were okay with that. We even got photos developed. You had to wait.
Gosh, right?
You mailed letters. Like we don't have to
Right,
do any of that anymore.
right.
So that concept of waiting, that concept of being still, and it's okay for things to take time,
Mhm.
it's foreign.
Yeah, and I think too, we are in a place in our household right now where we're sitting in an unknown with some
Hmm.
situations outside of, like, this podcast,
Yeah.
and the waiting is hard. So
Hmm.
if we take that into the social media situation, and what if we don't have we take that away, like, what do we do when we get stressed? Like,
Hmm.
how do we sit in it? How do we sit and just be? And know that you can't change it. It
Right.
can't be changed right now. You gotta feel it. You have to be where you are without going to something to distract us so that our brains can actually, maybe even, mm, internalize what it is, or process, rather, not internalize, but
Right.
process what's happening.
Hmm.
But I think we're, really interesting, and I'm speaking here, I'm putting myself right there on the front page of this book. Like, we are such a society of doers, like, wanting to know, and like you said, everything at our fingertips.
Hmm.
Like, I'm curious to your thought here. What do you think that started? Like, when do you think the big turning point was for all of that, for all of us as a community, as a whole, as people?
Yeah, I definitely think, um, I'm really gonna age myself now. I
Okay.
think cell phones and MySpace were just a gateway to. I
I loved
remember getting
MySpace.
just
Yeah.
lost in MySpace on
Yeah.
my desktop for hours. Because you
Yes.
couldn't get all that on your phone at the time. You just
Right.
sit at your computer or your laptop and you just get lost in MySpace.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we started. But then when we started getting, all the smartphones and
Mhm.
everything's at your fingertips, I think when we got it at our fingertips with us, all the time,
Yeah.
then that's what started it.
And
So
what do you think is, like, good about it? Like, if try to think about the positives, like the connecting with friends and family outside of our area, which is great, but
yeah.
how do you know when you've crossed that slippery slope? Like, for me, it was that, like, I'm doing great, and then just becomes a habitual, I pick this thing up and, like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I just what did I just do?"
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, I think the positives are we're more connected than ever. I think it's like a positive and a negative at the same time. I think we're more
Yeah.
connected than ever. So I can I can garner support in a moment's notice, like if I
Right.
need it.
Good
So I think
point.
that's a positive.
Mhm.
I think the negative part of it is just I think there's a whole lot of comparison, and that
Mm.
just leads to a lot of sadness and
Mhm.
a lot of I'm not worthy or I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
like you have to balance the good with realize the bad and realize, I don't Instagram versus reality
Mm.
is real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Mhm.
what people are showing you is their very best self.
Yeah.
They're not showing you, some people show you the whole picture, but nobody's showing you the real, you know,
The real
ugly
McCoy.
stuff.
Yeah, the
They're
uglies. Mhm.
even if they're putting something on there that they feel is vulnerable, it's they're choosing what to let you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we compare ourselves, it's like a CrossFit coach told me one time. I went to this class and I was really struggling because there was a lot of people in there that were younger than me, and I was like in my 30s, and they were all, early 20s and rocking at all these workouts. And I was doing great for me.
Yeah.
But I was surrounded by all these young guns. And the coach told me, she said, you need to stop comparing everybody's outside to your inside. She said,
Oh,
you
I
just need
love
to
that.
just do you because you're doing amazing. But when
Yeah.
you look around and compare, she said, you're discounting, you're cheapening all the things that you're
Yes.
accomplishing.
That's perfect. You're cheapening everything that is your accomplishment and
Hmm.
the positives about you as a
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then people quit seeing how great they're doing, and they
Yeah.
start saying, oh wow, she meal preps every Sunday like that. Oh,
Mhm.
she gets to stay home with her kids and they do this 3 times a week. Well,
Yeah.
what am I doing? I have to work full time. No, you're a great mom. You're
Yeah.
doing great on your fitness journey. If you can only meal prep for 2 days at a time,
Yeah.
you, it's all about bringing your best to the table. And my best, I can't compare that with anybody else because there's nobody else that's me.
Amen.
You know,
Amen. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can support everybody,
Mhm.
but I don't have to be who you are because I'm never going to be that,
Yeah.
you know?
The fear of missing out and the fear of
Mhm.
feeling that you have to be somebody different.
Mhm.
I love what that coach told you. Don't
Mhm.
compare their outsides to your insides or vice versa,
Yeah, yeah.
interchangeably,
Yeah,
because
excuse me.
it's very like that's a huge like woof right there.
Mhm.
You can't deny that.
That was a light bulb moment for me, and that was probably
Mm,
20
mhm.
years ago.
Yeah,
So, long
and
time.
it still applies. It still
Yeah.
applies.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Golly.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. Disconnect to reconnect. I probably will be I'll probably be revisiting this one. I
You're
know
like,
I need to
"There
be
you
revisiting.
go."
Yeah, I know. Begrudgingly, but because it's something that I think too, with this whole year that we're doing, I think it's very, I think it's important to say that there are things that we all or will struggle with and
Mhm.
that we all are challenged by and that we won't always succeed in. And that, like I said, that's a really hard thing for me as my character to think, oh, I didn't succeed at something that I really tried and I really put out there and I was really dedicated towards, but it just shows me where my room for growth is
Mhm.
and where my that I have more capacity,
Mhm.
that I can do it. And
Oh,
it
for
sounds
sure.
well, it sounds kind of crazy to say it like that, but I'm trying to find the 1%. I'm trying to find the light,
Right.
in the negative, and I think that's another thing we're trying to do here too, is just
Mhm.
finding the piece that works, that's just a shred, because even if you are in a super dark room, if that door cracks just an inch, you know, it gives you a little bit of light. It gives you that's your hope. Yeah, that's your
Right.
work.
It's still light. It may not light up the whole room, but it's a
Yeah,
start, you know?
it's a start. It's a
Yes.
start. Yay! All right, disconnect to reconnect. I'm gonna try it again. Maybe I'll report back to you in the
Yes.
next few times, just kind of as a sidebar of what we're doing. But
Yeah.
hey, just before we go, how's your high rocks training going? Because I told you in the last time we talked, yeah, we're going to keep you accountable. So I'm just going to ask you about that one randomly.
Yes, it's going well other than,
Oh,
bronchitis
you've
hit
been
me.
under the
So
weather. Yeah.
but since the last time we talked, I had a few days, like in Mississippi, when we traveled, I loaded my sled in the back of my car and took it
You did.
and did my workouts while I was in Mississippi. And then we got back from Mississippi and then I got bronchitis. So
Yeah.
worked one day and then was down for 4. So today is actually going to be the first day where I am going to do um, get right back at it. I've been working the last 2 days, so I've gotten quite a bit of steps in, but I'm not any resistance training. So today's the day.
Good. Let's go.
Yes, we're
All
feeling
right.
better. We're getting there. I'm not 100%, but I'm way better than I was. So
Well,
that's all
good.
good. Yeah.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm just going to randomly drop that little, how
I
are you
love it.
doing there?
Please do. It'll keep me going. It'll keep me accountable. Like, oh no, John's going to ask me when we're recording.
Yeah, I'm totally going to put you on the
I know,
spot. Yeah.
right? I'm like, oh, yeah. That's funny.
You can't, yes, you can't get out. You'll have to answer that.
No, I don't want to get
And
out because it's
yeah,
better. I surely don't want to show up at that race and not be prepared. So
yeah,
the more people
absolutely.
holding me accountable, the better. So
Yeah. And I just want to invite everybody that's listening to take part in these challenges along the way to let us know how you're doing with it. We're going to eventually
yes.
find a way to be able to communicate with you in this concept because I just think it's that's kind of a cool little call to action, if you will. Like,
Yeah.
hey, like who wants to join up? And I think about it. I actually woke up thinking about this a couple days ago, that the Forrest Gump movie where he's running, right? And he has all these people joining him. He's running
Hmm.
across country and he gets to the desert and he's running and he stops and they all stop like I don't know how far behind him, 30 yards
Yeah.
behind him, and they're like, shh, he's going to speak, he's going to say something. He turns around, he's like, I'm tired, I think I'm going to go home now, right? Or whatever it was that he says.
Right.
And he just walks right through them and they're like, that's all, that's all. Yeah,
Hmm.
but the interesting thing is that he created a movement of people following him. And not that we all want to be followers, but it's a movement of people that had different ideas and different thoughts and different hopes. And they were motivated by that. So our
Right.
hope, yeah, is that our hopes we can motivate you in some capacity.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If one person out there does something that that scares them to do, it's success. I love that. So
Yes. Do
yeah.
it afraid. You
Do
said
it
that a few weeks
afraid.
ago.
Yes, I said it a few times. That's
Uh-huh.
kind of one of my mottos. It's written, I have it written down. It's do it afraid.
Do it afraid, kids. Go disconnect so that you can reconnect. Do it afraid, kids.
Do it again, afraid.
Yes, I'm gonna try it. I was afraid for 3 weeks or for 3 times. I'm like, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it again, and maybe I'll report back to you
Right.
next time
I would
that
love
it's been
that.
better. Yeah. All right, guys. Until next week's challenge, I'm Dawn,
I'm
and
Dixie.
yay, we'll see you next time, guys.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.